Hey folks, Stacy Battleaxe here. I'm actually out in my daughter's playhouse just because it's a quiet spot. It's pretty cool out today. It's only about 12 to 15 degrees. But I just kind of love the ambiance in this room. She's got little writings and pictures, and I love the old barnwood. So I just like the background, and I like the breeze. I like to be outside and be a part of creation. But guys, I'm coming to you today with a little bit of an update and to talk to you about the control of the power structure, and specifically government power structures, but religious power structures. And trust me, there's many of those as well that seek to control. So folks, little update here. I am back. I had planned on making more videos after I gave you my last update after COVID. We are healthy again. My daughter and son-in-law, my grandson, did find an apartment, and they moved out a few days ago. And she's ready to drop my second grandson any day. She is dropping literally, and she started dilating. So we're very excited. I'm waiting for the phone call from her to say, "Mom, come, baby's coming." Because she's having a home birth with a midwife. So I'm very excited to be a part of that. I was robbed of that last year with my first grandson because of COVID. The birthing center, she went through midwives, but the birthing center wouldn't allow anybody but mom and dad to be there. And that was the case for a lot of places last year. So, but this midwife this year in home says you can have whoever you want to be a part of the birth. So my main priority and job is going to be keeping Oliver content and quiet and at peace so Mama can do the job that she has at hand. But I also get to witness this birth, and I'm very excited about that. I can't wait. So there's that. So we have our home back, just my husband, my youngest daughter, and I. And, folks, over the years, I've always said, my son-in-law and my daughter twice had to come back home for extenuating circumstances that were not their own. First time he lost his job. They couldn't make rent because of the first COVID 2 years ago when it came through, and the economy slowed down and businesses slowed down. The second time was because of the darn cockroaches that weren't disclosed to them when they moved into place, and they were everywhere. So we moved them back home. But guys, through that experience, I suggest everybody, as a means, as a act of practice for preparation, have their kids come home for a week or two. And it doesn't even have to be with all their stuff, but have them come live with you. Because, we all talk about prepping, and we talk about, this person's going to come, my kids are coming back home. But until you actually have them live with you and experience the different, because you know what, once your kids move out and they get married and they have children, there's different family dynamics. Everybody gains or grows their own family dynamics. And guys, it's a psychological test for you. It's a physical test, because no matter how big your house is, it gets smaller when one, say your daughter, and say you got a son, or three siblings with wives, with children that were to move back home. If you are that bug out location, you need to do these things, because I'm telling you, you are going to run into bumps. You need to know what to do, what to have, what not to do, and what not to have. You really should take a week or two and say, "Hey, kids, come home." And yeah, bring the dog, bring the cat, and look at those dynamics, and look at those struggles and those road bumps that come along the way, so you can adapt for when and if the real thing comes down to the road. But guys, on to my topic. I'm talking about the power structure and the ways and the means that they control people. Now, guys, we're all very aware about the government and the absolute unfettered power that especially the federal government has in recent years. You can't sell in some states eggs to your neighbors without a license, which is ridiculous. Legally here in Wisconsin, I can sell off the farm all I want. Up 1,000 chickens that are butchered off the property. I can sell eggs off the property. I can't do red meat like beef or pork or anything like that. That has to be USDA certified. And you have to have a license for that. I can sell much produce, but the second I put those eggs or that chicken in a vehicle and I deliver it to my mother, I am now breaking their law, which isn't law. It's simply regulation. They're regulating my liberty to move freely and conduct business freely in a supposed free society, which you guys all know we are not free. We're not remotely free. Russians got more freedom than we do. And I say that because 3 years ago, we had Russians stop here at the farm. They were contemplating migrating to the U.S. And I ended up speaking to these people for 2 hours, telling them, about taxes, about the regulations and how you got to be licensed, because they wanted to come here and be farmers. The cost of living and, how much for a farm with 20 acres that, and especially now with this real estate bubble exploding, right? A farm with 20 acres can cost $350,000 to $500,000. And it's happening. At that time, a property like that still was $300,000, $350,000. And their mind was blown away at the cost of things here, at the regulations. And they had said to me, ma'am, you know what? We thank you for all the advice and the honesty that you have had given us. We have 7 days. They were doing like a 7 days tour and they were coming back through. We're going to stop. They actually went all the way out to like Oregon and Wyoming and all that stuff. And we're going to stop on the way back through. And they come back like 7 or 10 days later. I can't remember what it was. And they were so thankful that I gave them the questions they needed to go across the country and ask farmers, ranchers, business owners what they needed to ask. And by the time they came back, they said, ma'am, we're not migrating to the United States. We have more freedom to do business and own land. And we're not taxed like this, in Russia. So they decided to stay in Russia. Now, guys, that's pretty... it's not sad for them. Obviously, they don't have to move. But the fact of the matter is it's sad for us because countries that were one time considered a place of tyranny or control or, socialist, communist are turning into those bastions of hope that America used to be. And anybody worth their weight in salt that wants to come here and migrate here legally, that does their research, will research that out and find that for themselves. It's the illegals that come over here that want to live off the government and get uneducated jobs and just live off the state, get free education. They're the ones that don't realize that in many of their countries south of the border, they have it better than they would have here. But so folks, that the unfettered power system of government, USDA, FDA, FBI, ATF, all the quote constitutional rights we have being regulated, and even the freedom of religion, right? To gather, it's regulated only because those churches came over under the 501c3 umbrella of control to be tax exempt. That's their fault, of course. But I have said from the beginning, the answer to all this, the power structure and the control, right? The overregulation and control is to decentralize it all. We need to decentralize the federal government. We need to dismantle these type of organizations, the unconstitutional, whatever you want to call it, FBI, ATF, it's all unconstitutional. We need to dismantle them. We need to decentralize the banks. We need to decentralize our businesses. Guys, you need to enter into private contracts. Like I run a CSA, co-op, private buy groups, whatever you want to say. Don't be open to the public. Don't be open to the public, because when you're open to the public, guess what? The government has the right to come in and say, hey, you can't discriminate. We can control aspects of your business, your life. If you're open to the government, that normally we would not be able to as a government if you were private. There's also tax reasons you want to be private. I am encouraging people that if you get 10, 50 families together and you want to start communities, make them private communities by invitation only. And you know what? Invite who you want, like-minded people. This is the answer: decentralization and privatization of all business. Schools, private schools, homeschooling, whatever you want to call it. There's a big move after COVID. A lot of people came out of the school districts, the public school system, and a lot of parents didn't know what to do with their kids. Well, then the mandatory snake bite came along, right? And a lot of the teachers that didn't want to take the snake bite said, hey, we're willing to teach for X amount of money every week. Bring your kids over to my house or whatever. So there are, I'm not saying where and who and what, because it's none of the government's business. It's nobody's business. But there are teachers that walked out of the government-funded, government brainwashed school system and are teaching 10 to 15 kids out of their home and making cash, making bank. And the kids are getting a better education because they're out of that government box that puts them in IPEs where they say they're, mentally disabled or slow readers, right? They come out of that box and now all of a sudden they thrive. And I'm hearing story after story of situations in certain areas, maybe not Wisconsin, maybe Wisconsin, where kids are thriving and the teachers are blown away with how joyful they are in their work now. And may I add, when that situation occurs, kids don't have to be in school 7-8 hours a day. They just don't. By noon, they're done. They've got their schooling in and they can be home with mom or dad or what have you. So the answer to destroying the power structure of both the federal government and the state is decentralization and privatization. And that's a fact. Opt out of the system. Opt out of the... the Bible says who the Son set free is free indeed. And it talks over and over about coming out from amongst them. Come out from amongst them. Be separate. Why? So that you can be free. Be free of that. Now, guys, there may come a time in the United States where the government comes in and they impose the strong hand of tyranny, and, such as Stalin did in Russia, and come to the farms and steal their food and starve them out. I mean, that may happen. But at that point, never give up your Second Amendment. Never give up your pew-pews. And I'm saying that, guys. Pew, pew, pew. Never give them up. Because the only thing right now that has not allowed this federal government to impose the tyranny that is going on right now in Australia with the COVID camps and mandatory snake bites, the only thing that's stopping this government is the Second Amendment. Or we would have been there already. Mark my words. We would have been there already. So never give that up. Buy, buy, buy. Trade, trade, trade. Sell, sell, sell if you can. Now I know what you're saying. Oh, you need a license. Not to sell to a family member, a cousin, or gift. You can gift any Second Amendment thing you want. You can gift it away. My grandmother gifted me my hunting rifle. That is completely legal. So guys, think about that. I'm going to move on to the religious part of it. I'm going to give you a couple examples. First of all, I'll start off by saying my husband and I left the mainstream church about 10 years ago. There was a lot of false doctrine, false teachings that we were aware of, a lot of politics within the church we didn't want to be in, a lot of tyranny. And yes, tyranny. A pastor imposing his will on the parishioners, he's the head, right? That false teaching that the pastor is the head of that church and they're your covering, which is so not biblical. Jesus Christ is the head of the church and Jesus Christ is our covering. Enough. Period. That's it. And even for wives, Jesus Christ is my head and he is my covering, not my husband. Guys, say what you want, but Paul had there was a lot that Paul spoke that was counter to the word of God. And in nowhere in the Old Testament will you ever find anywhere where it says that the man, the husband, was the head. It does say in the Old Testament that the wife will be under but that's different. But Jesus Christ is the head. He is our covering. And so say what you want, you guys, you can sit there and fight about Paul or what, but I'm a Christian, a Christ follower. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm not a Paulian, and I don't submit, me neither, my husband and I, to the things that Paul teaches. All right. And sadly enough, the way the power structure in the mainstream church has gone, it has gone the way of Paul. It has not gone the way of Christ. Again, like I said, who the Son sets free is free indeed. Paul teaches that you are to submit under these governments, and I know what you say about tyranny or whatever. Jesus never taught that. Jesus spoke against the power structure. He got in its face and rebuked it when he walked on this earth. The entire Old Testament talks about God's children coming against the power structure. Could you imagine Moses if he would have said, oh, I just need to submit to government. I need to lay down and we're just going to leave. Moses or Pharaoh, don't let my people go. Don't let them go. We're just going to stay here. We're going to be slaves. There's numerous examples like that. So guys, understandably, a lot of and I'm going to say it, the tyranny that is pushed in the mainstream churches comes from teachings and doctrine that doesn't line up to what Jesus Christ said in the Old Testament. Here's an example. I live amongst the Amish, okay? Now, whether it's the mainstream evangelical church, Pentecostals, whatever, there is a power structure there of control. There always is a hierarchy that is in the likeness or image of the Catholic Church. The Pope and the bishops and everything on down, right? And why is that? Was it because Jesus Christ gave us that hierarchy or that setup? It was because Paul preached it, okay? We don't see that in the Old Testament either. You had judges and you had kings and things like this, but we didn't have a hierarchy system within God's nation, all right? Again, God, Jesus is the head, and so on and so forth, okay? So what we see in my community among the Amish, all right? Now, guys, that's, say what you want. I admire the community and the fellowship and the support the community gives each other. I have nothing to say bad about that. But the actual religious beliefs and dogma and where they give them from is about absolute control and tyranny amongst their people. And to the point where, I have said before, the religious part of it is a cult. You want to know what's a cult? The true test of a cult is when you try to leave it to see what the people do to you. And in the Amish religion, if you want to walk away from that lifestyle or that church, it is absolute shunning. These kids and the people that walk away have the clothes on their back, and that's it. They usually run away in the middle of the night. They don't have money. Around here, farmers cannot pay the teenagers or the young adults money. It goes right to the parents. Why? Because that's a form of control. Because if the unmarried people who don't have wives and kids that aren't a part of the church yet, that haven't made that devotion, don't have money, they don't have option to leave the culture, the religion. So you'll actually, as a farmer, if you're paying cash to anybody, no matter what the age, if they're not married and they haven't made the vow to the church, you'll get in big trouble. I've had neighbors that have had the bishops come knock on their door. You can't give these kids money. And it really is. It's absolute control. It's the power structure, the religious power structure. It's absolute control and tyranny to keep those people in their place. Here's an example. We're going to tell you in the Amish culture how you're going to transport your family from A to B, right? You got to have horse, you got to have buggy. Oh, but it's okay to call a English person for a car, for a taxi if you got to, you can call and pay somebody else, but you just can't have it yourself. And some of the churches around here, they can drive tractors around pulling a trailer with their kids, but they can't own a car or a truck. Guys, it's just stupid. It's absolute ignorance and hypocrisy. So a tractor's okay with a combustible engine, but a truck is not okay. It's stupidity. It's all about the power structure and the control, and to keep people here so that they can't be free to make their own choices. All right. Right down to the clothing. I mean, how thick the pleats in the woman's dress are. How many layers of the head covering. And what type of pins. There are some Amish sects that won't even allow their parishioners, their people, to use a safety pin. They have to use a straight pin because a safety pin is considered too modern, right? Now, all mind you, is absolute control over dress, transportation, the color of their house. When we moved in, like baby blue or pink or white. That's pretty much all they could paint. In some sects, it's just white. You see the white house with the white, you can't paint. The color of the clothes, everything is controlled. A couple years ago, I still get the Amish literature because we moved in here, and there's some places in Pennsylvania that still think that the family lives here. They go so far to tell husband and wife what they can and can't do in the bed. And it's absolute control. And guys, that's a product of false New Testament teaching. Now you can argue, they don't understand it. They are reading from a German Bible and this and that. But that's the fruit. That is the fruit of false teaching right there. The fruit of false biblical teaching is the subjugation of women throughout the centuries. That's the fruit of false teaching and false doctrine. And guys, this is what we see in these power structures, be it government or religious. There's always a power structure no matter what it is. You just have to decide how much you're willing to be a part of it or opt out of it. Now, for the federal part, for the government part, we've tried to opt out as to the best of our ability. And even if a person was to sell everything, go out and buy 10 acres of land, build a cabin, hunt for hides, go do a trap line so that they could sell that for money to pay their taxes off the property, and hunt and fish and, maybe raise some chickens, whatever. And just off the scraps like it used to be, and not be reliant on any mills. I'm not reliant on mills or anything like that. Even if you did all that, you still would have to pay your taxes. And if you didn't pay your taxes, the government would still come and take your land. So all in all, we can only opt out to the best of our ability, and we are still subject to the hand of government. Now, as far as the religious aspect of that goes, you don't have to be subject to any tyranny or power structure of religion. And guys, understand, it's religion. It's always man's rules about what they interpret from the Bible or any other religion for that. It's always what man thinks, and then they impose man's will on other people. Okay? My husband and I opted out of that system almost 10 years ago. And we have been set free of that those church politics, from the pastor saying, if you don't tithe, you're stealing from God. Guys, I've heard it all, to the point where there was a young lady behind me, and she didn't have much to give, right? If she tithed, she wasn't making her rent that month. But because the pastor browbeat her to think that if she didn't give that money to the church, right, that she was going to go to hell because she was a thief. She was stealing from God. These are the things that you see in the Main Street Church. Now, I know what some of you are saying. Our church doesn't do that. But all churches do a little bit of something, right? And if you have a small local community church that the few families, 5, 10 families, and it's great, good for you. But I'm talking about the mainstream. I'm talking about the 501c3. I'm talking about them that have come under the hand of government. I'm talking about even the ones that came out of the 501c3 that seem to think that the man, the big guy sitting behind the pulpit, has some authority over you and your family. Guys, when we belonged to the church, I wanted to start a women's Bible study in my home. I didn't even invite all the women from the church. There was like 2 or 3 women that I was friends with. I privately invited, and there was women from outside of that church with other denominations. And that preacher, that pastor came to my husband, because he wouldn't speak to me, and said, you need to control your wife. This hasn't been sanctioned and this wasn't approved by us. Well, then I got involved and said, listen, I don't need to ask permission from you for anything to do in my home. Who the heck do you think you are? But guys, this is the type of stuff that goes on within mainstream religiosity. And that's what it is. It's religion. We opted out of that. That power structure, and it's man who seeks to control, right? The only control, and it's not even control, because God's will is one where he offers you free will. He says, this is my will for your life. I want you to prosper. I want you to live holy and righteous. I want you to bear good fruit so that you can live a long life and be a light to the world, right? We choose that freely. And everything within the context of the Bible that he says do or not to do is a choice of free will. But these men, these women in government and within the mainstream church, they will push the point. I mean, to the point, like if you miss a Sunday because you're sick in the Amish church, that's one thing. You better be on your deathbed if you miss Sunday church in the Amish religion. But if you miss 2 Sundays, they're knocking on your door. What's going on? And if you don't have a good excuse, you are excommunicated. You are excommunicated. If you get caught in the Amish religion, fellowshipping, socializing, becoming close with an English person, or if you get caught with an English Bible in your house, you're out. You're excommunicated. I was a part of the evangelical Pentecostal, whatever you want to call it, mainstream church for a while. If you were not volunteering to do something, you were looked at as worldly, right? As lazy, and you were guilted in. Like, listen, I love kids. Say what you want, but I'm one of these people that likes her own kids and her own grandkids. I'm not. Put me in a barn with 150 cows and I'm happy. But put 10 kids in there and I am high strung, tense. I'm not a kid person. I love my own and I love my grandchildren and even my close friend that could say, "Ooh, you're so cute." But I am not a kid person. If I was, I would have become a teacher. I don't do that. I got guilted into taking on the elementary grade Bible study. And honest to God, I was so unhappy. And it was not for me. It was not my calling at all. But guys, this is that power structure. So I'll tell you what, when the bricks started crumbling, when my husband and I started diving in and said, what in the heck is going on here? We started knocking on the door of the pastor and the elders and saying, this isn't right. We ended up leaving because you're not going to convince them all, but we have, guys, be it governmental wise or religious wise, we have the option to walk away and not be a part of that power structure of control. Now, like I said, government wise, there's always going to be some control, right? And say what you want. If you buy gas for your vehicle, and in some states, like here in Wisconsin, we're taxed on our gas for our roads. There's a lot of construction that goes on in Wisconsin because our ground freezes and the road heaves and stuff like that. So there's the kind of going joke here in Wisconsin is there's 2 seasons, right? There's winter and then there's road construction season. It's just the way it is here. So you never can get out of that all the way, but you can certainly opt out of that religious power structure. And I say religion, I'm not saying faith. You can follow the tenets of your faith, of your belief, and press in and allow God to lead you and show you without some man or woman between dictating, like the Pope or like the quote, pastor of the church that thinks he has authority over you. And I know some of you out there are going to blow a stack. That's false. She's just a woman with a big mouth that doesn't want to. See, guys, but if you're out there saying that, you're part of that false teaching in the New Testament. You're part of the falsehood that have made women doormats. And you think you have some authority over women when you don't. When you don't. I submit to my husband when the situation is right. Like, we could have two ideas about something and I'll disagree, he'll disagree. And if it's not something that I feel passionate about, that doesn't affect, like, he takes the reins. He's my husband. I do that. But if it's something that I know, biblically speaking, that he's not seeing or whatever, that I know is wrong, I will dig in my heels. For example, we don't eat pork. The Bible says all the way from the Old Testament to Noah that eating pork is an abomination, right? It says it's it was before the Mosaic law, and it was after. Jesus never ate pork, right? I know Paul came along and said you can eat, whatever you can't. Even the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, them who walked with Christ, never partook in that. And all the quote unquote visions that people like Peter saw, that was about people. That was about people being clean or unclean, being clean, not the actual pork. So there, like, when we came to that realization, I dug in my heels and I said, no, we're not, I'm not raising pork anymore, not selling it anymore. I'm not cooking it. And when my daughter moved out and her husband, of course, they have free will to do what they want in their life. But just recently they, when we came to this, my oldest was a teenager and she was like, what? But now as a mommy, she's realizing, biblically speaking, that, mom was right about this. And guess what, guys? My husband came along. A lot of times, like in our home, in our structure dynamic of our home, I have a lot more time to, especially in the winter months, I have a lot more time to spend in the Word. So I will pose a question, what do you think about this? And we'll go back and forth for 3-4 weeks. And just through the conversation, and then, like, if he's on his lunchtime or whatever, he gets up early at 4 o'clock in the morning to the Bible, he'll seek out that topic. And then he'll come to me 2 months later and he'll say, oh my gosh, you were right. Or he'll say, I think you were right on the right track here, but here, look at it from this perspective. And then I'll go, oh, I didn't see that. So we have this dynamic where we go back and forth. But guys, if it's something that I believe goes against God's law, and it's absolute right or wrong, like I would caution you women who are married and who have boyfriends, what have you, who you allow to abuse you and beat you. And guys, some of you guys your blood is going to boil when I say this, but you have culpability in that. You are a stumbling block in his life to be sanctified and conform to the image of Christ. If you allow abuse on your physical body or your emotions, you are part of the abuse. If you never say no, you allow it. And I know women will get mad. Well, if I said something, he would beat me more. He would do this. Well, guess what? You're going to meet your creator someday and you're going to say, I was a victim. I couldn't. And he's going to say, well, why didn't you say no? It's like this. Listen, I was raped when I was 12 years old. I was raped and sodomized. I screamed, no, no, no. And it still happened. I was a victim. But if you don't say no, are you a victim? I say that because we live in a society that wants to blame everybody else for everything. And there are women out there where you think your husband is the head over you, and you put him in the position as Christ himself. That is your godly head, right? That man is imperfect. And he may not even be praying daily. He may not even be in the Bible, but you say he's your head. And you submit and you subjugate yourself to unbiblical, unlawful tyranny and control in your life. You're going to answer for that someday. You absolutely are going to answer for that someday. And I'm not saying that you be a nag and you know, this and that. But you need to, in wisdom and humility, go to that person who is either abusing you or in the wrong and not submitting to the word of God. And you need to say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. You can maybe believe what you want to believe, but I'm no longer a partaker in this. Because one day, women, you are going to stand before a creator, your God, your judge, the Messiah. And you're going to have to make explanation for yourself on why you allowed or why you partook in this. And your husband ain't going to be your excuse. You're going to be without excuse. You can't blame your husband. So guys, we can have all these excuses, male or female, right? The power structure, this or that. But we have got, and even in a marriage, right? It's a power structure if it's not founded in truth. And if it's not a godly person on one end or the other. But we can opt out. We can be the voice of reason, and we can do what we can to opt out to the best of our ability, guys. And so that's all I have to say on this subject. I know some of you are going to be angry and, you know, this and that, and you're going to say, woman, your place is to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And I say to you, read the Song of Solomon. Listen, his wife was no pushover. She blessed her husband, but she ran his lands. She ran her businesses, and she managed, and it's not slaves, the servants, right? She ran it. She was a business owner, manager, whatever you want to call it. She did that. She didn't sit home barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Please, if that's what you're doing, have at it. Have more babies. But don't do it as a means because you believe that you're supposed to just be there and it's a subjugation type of thing. Do it, you know, be pregnant, have babies, and be a mommy and homeschool and do that because it's the joy and it's the calling on your life, not because somebody else tells you to do it. Okay. I would submit to you, you know, God, the creator said, go forth and multiply. But that doesn't mean you're barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen like that statement. That means you're a mother. You guide, you lead with wisdom, your children. You teach your children. You manage your home, right? I suggest every woman have some home-based business, as the Proverbs 31 woman did. Whether it's selling eggs, as some of you women are crafty as hell, get out, make mittens, whatever, get on Etsy, sell them, whatever. Have some sort of business so that you have the opportunity to be a light outside of just that home structure, you know. But guys, that's all I have to say about this. Please place your comments and your questions below. And I'll try to get back to you. I'm going to try to do this every couple weeks. I am progressively getting off of platforms and things like that. So it's not that I'm not going to have YouTube and not be making videos. I just am not going to have the presence I did on my other channel where I was making like 2 a week. Okay, so if you have any questions about how to do no-till, sustainable farming, things like that, go over to Sustainable Stewards. That's my other channel. I'm no longer making videos there, but there's enough from beginning to end that you can do that. You can be self-sufficient and sustainable at that channel. So guys, this is Stacy the Battle Axe saying God bless you. Be safe, be in health, walk with intention, start living your purpose, guys, and come out from amongst them so that you don't have to be a serf, a subject to the power system that seeks to control you. God bless.